What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, November 17th, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 17:23 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Venezuela and from Eastern Europe. So what you're looking at here is the flight path of a B-52 Stratofortress. This is a U.S. nuclear bomber. And two of these bombers flew from the Meron Air Base in Spain all the way to the Middle East. Now, one of them flew all the way to Qatar and was doing loops over Qatar, and then it went back to Spain, and then the other one flew to Egypt and disappeared from the flight tracker. So I don't know what the purpose of these B-52s flying to the Arabian Peninsula and Qatar in particular was, but very, very interesting. Here you can see both of them. One of them flew towards Egypt and then turned around and came back, while the other one continued on towards Qatar, and it looped over Qatar for quite a while. So this is pretty interesting, maybe practicing doing some bombing runs on Iran. I don't know, but wanted to share that with you. And this afternoon we have U.S. strategic forces or nuclear forces on very high alert. We had this interesting flight path of a U.S. combat Sentinel plane. These planes are the highest priority recon planes in the U.S. Air Force. We only have two of them, and they send intelligence directly to the president and the top generals. And it was flying in this interesting north to south pattern, and then it went east to west. So it seems like they wanted just general surveillance of North America, looking at threats to the east and west and to the north and south. Very, very interesting. And then also we have a U.S. nuclear war command and control plane just northeast of Sioux Falls doing loops, which typically they do over the ocean. They drop their trailing wire antenna to communicate with submerged nuclear armed submarines. And then we also had an aerial refueler from Topeka, Kansas, fly to Whiteman Air Force Base, and it did a bunch of loops over Whiteman. Here's a closer look at this refueler, looping just to the east of Whiteman, possibly refueling a B-2 stealth bomber. So it's possible that the stealth bombers may be getting ready to strike Venezuela in addition to that carrier strike group and the over a dozen guided missile warships that altogether can launch 1,100 missiles in one round, okay? And what you're looking at here is some encrypted data that was being transmitted over the last few days on one of the secondary U.S. nuclear war frequencies, and it was literally going nonstop for the past several days. Typically, this happens right before some kind of big military action. In my experience, I always see this right before some kind of big U.S. strike, let's say on Iran, or when Israel and Iran were at war. We saw a lot of these data signals coming in, but this is what it sounds like. So very interesting. And then also this afternoon, we had a Venezuelan intelligence plane take off from an airfield south of Caracas. So Venezuela's probably trying to keep an eye on U.S. forces in the Caribbean. And then we also had this over-the-horizon radar, which is a nuclear war radar. It's for detecting the launch of ICBMs from very long distances last night, and it was globally audible, meaning it was very powerful. And what's interesting is that it was bleeding over, or actually right on top of one of the primary U.S. nuclear war frequencies. Okay, so I don't know if that was intentional, if the Russians were practicing jamming the U.S. nuclear war frequency, but it was literally at full blast globally right on top of the U.S. primary nuclear war frequency. So take a listen. So this is right on top of the U.S. primary nuclear war frequency, and that was in Europe, but it was also audible here in the U.S. And then this afternoon, we have this strange signal coming out of Europe. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm working to identify it. Very, very interesting signal I have not seen before. Listen to this one. And Trump said over the weekend that he has no updates on Venezuela. And he said that apparently they're going to be talking to Maduro, that they haven't completely closed the negotiations with Maduro. And a U.S. official said yesterday that the table is being set for possible military action against Venezuela. And the U.S. Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio said the State Department plans to designate Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization, claiming it is led by Nicolas Maduro, calling the Maduro government an illegitimate regime. The designation will come into effect November 24th. So what's interesting about this is that they link Rubio, and the Trump administration is linking the Maduro regime to this cartel, saying that it's led by Maduro, okay? So that will essentially allow the U.S. to go after the Maduro regime and to attack Venezuela without war powers resolution or any approval from Congress, okay? And Maduro called the U.S. military exercises in Trinidad off the coast of Venezuela a serious threat. And the Army Secretary Dan Driscoll says U.S. forces are ready to act if asked against Venezuela. And we have some very concerning information coming out of Poland this afternoon. There was some kind of sabotage incident along at least one train route in Poland that goes from Warsaw towards Ukraine, specifically to the city of Lublin in southeastern Poland. No one was injured. The Polish Prime Minister confirmed that it was an act of foreign sabotage and that explosives were used in one situation. They put explosives in one part of the train, one part of the rail line on the train tracks. They put explosives, and then in a different location, I guess they tried to short circuit the electrical connection. There was some kind of a clamp connecting the positive and the negative, if you will. And so let me read to you what the Polish Prime Minister said. Blowing up the rail track on the Warsaw-Lublin route is an unprecedented act of sabotage targeting directly the security of the Polish state and its civilians. This route is also crucially important for delivering aid to Ukraine. We will catch the perpetrators, whoever they are. And then we heard that there were also reports coming in of more sabotage, including a train line that goes from the city of Świnoujście to Rzeszów. So Świnoujście is up in northwest Poland, right on the border of Germany. It's literally right next to the German border, and it's on the Baltic Sea, and that's a major port city where goods come in. And Świnoujście is one of two major ports in Poland. The other is Gdańsk. And apparently this train route that goes from that port city down to Rzeszów, which is the main Ukrainian logistics hub, was also potentially attacked, okay? And we're now hearing that Poland will be convening an emergency meeting tomorrow with their National Security Committee, which includes all the top generals, the entire cabinet, basically the entire top military and government officials will be at this emergency meeting tomorrow. And the German defense minister believes that NATO should review the assessments predicting a direct confrontation with Russia. He believes now that Russia could attack the Baltics as soon as early 2028 and not 2029. And Romanian authorities are evacuating the village of Ploru after a drone strike on Ukraine's Ismail port overnight, which damaged several ships, including a Turkish vessel carrying 4,000 tons of liquefied gas. The fire on board caused by the drone strike raised fears of a possible explosion, prompting the evacuation near the border. So Ploru is right on the border of Ukraine. It's separated by the Danube River. So this is coming from the Romanian side looking towards the Ukrainian side. And you can see this huge ship, which is apparently a Turkish ship with 4,000 tons of liquefied natural gas. And it's on fire here. Check this out. So Russia continues to strike right on the border of Romania, this port on the Danube River, the Ismail port, which is a critical port because the Danube River is big enough and deep enough for these cargo ships to go in and they can exchange goods. You can see they have a whole shipyard there. And there were more drones launched towards Denmark last night. Apparently, arrivals and departures were temporarily halted at the Aalborg airport in northern Denmark due to possible activity by unidentified drones near the airport, according to the Danish government-owned broadcaster TV2. Wow. And Finnish forces have launched artillery drills right next to the Russian border. The Rovajärvi training area in eastern Lapland has gathered 2,000 troops and about 500 pieces of equipment, the largest artillery exercise in the region at the start of winter. And we have a Marburg virus outbreak in eastern Africa. 9 fatalities have been reported already in Ethiopia. This was confirmed by the World Health Organization. So Marburg is very, very concerning. It's worse than Ebola because it's very similar to Ebola. It's a hemorrhagic fever, but it's a lot more contagious, okay? And U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that the U.S. Republicans in Congress are working on a bill which will sanction countries that conduct business with Russia. And Trump commented on Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday. He called her Marjorie Traitor Greene. And he responded to her accusations that MAGA was targeting her and that she was getting death threats because apparently Trump is egging these death threats on now. And he said, I don't think her life is in danger. I don't think anybody cares about her. Wow. And Trump said that the Epstein files are being used to deflect from the success of his administration. And in case you guys are not aware, Congress is going to be voting this week to release all of the Epstein files, okay? And the Indian Army chief said yesterday that India needs to be prepared for a long-term war. And the Ukrainian President Zelensky is expected to seal deals with France on the supply of air defense capabilities, warplanes, and missiles. And these are going to be long-term deals, okay? And Trump announced plans for a major meeting with the New York City mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. And if Japan intervenes in Taiwan, the entire country of Japan will be turned into a battlefield, according to the Chinese army. So that's what the Chinese army said. And the Chinese Ministry of Education said that studying in Japan carries increasing safety risks for Chinese nationals. So I don't know if they're talking about a war with Japan and they don't want their citizens being in Japan, but Very, very concerning. And last night we had an interesting flight into the Black Sea. We had this unidentified Beach King plane that took off from Bucharest and flew into the central Black Sea. These are typically recon planes, these Beechcraft, but it had no information about it, likely some kind of intelligence or NATO country here flying this plane into the Black Sea to gather information on Russian targets, possibly for Ukraine. Looks like they were looking straight at the Crimea bridge. Maybe the Ukrainians are going to strike the bridge before the end of the year. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back tonight with a live update and live monitoring, so make sure you have your notifications turned on. Follow me on Telegram and Twitter. I post all my updates over there, and when I go live, I give a notice over there. Also, download my app in the Google Play Store. It's totally free, and it lets me send out notifications to you when there's breaking news, emergency alerts, and when I go live. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to use my link. It's in the description below this video. It's preparewithnyprepper.com. So they're selling their 3-month emergency food kit at 30% off. Plus, they're going to throw in an additional month of food. So that's 4 months of food. And the normal price would be $944. And they're selling it at just under $700 for 4 months of food. And this food has a 25-year shelf life. And it's all packed into rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space in your home. And the food is obviously nutritious, which is very important for surviving any kind of SHTF situation. You can also use this food for camping and traveling. But use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get a free month of emergency food with your 3-month emergency food kit from NYPrepper Supply, all at 30% off, just $700 for 4 months of food. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get the deal, and the link is in the description below this video.